The village of Hommlet as it's commonly called, is situated in the central part of the Flannis, that portion of eastern Auric continent which is known as civilized. The village, actually hamlet size, though local parlance distinguish it with the term village, is located some 10 or so leagues southwest of the town Verbombonk, on the fringes of the territory controlled by its noble lord, the Viscount of Verbombonk. It is at a crossroad. To the north is the mighty Valverving River, along whose south banks runs the low road, many day travel to the east, on the shores of the lakes of the unknown death. The Nyers Diver is a great walled city of divers, the village of Sombanwich, about halfway along the route. Below that, to the southeast and east, are miles and miles of forest, the Garly, beyond which is the wild coast, Woolly Bay, and the Sea of Garnet. The road south forks a league or so beyond the little community, one meandering off towards the wild coast, the other is a rolling through the lower Cron Hills to the village of Ostrek, and then eventually turning southwards again into the elvish kingdom of Selene. The western route leads into the very heart of the gnomish highlands, passing through the Greenway. It's about a day's travel's distance, and going onwards to Lort Mill. Hommlet grew from a farm or two, a rest house, and a smithy. The roads brought a significant number of travelers and merchant wagons to attract tradesmen and artisans to serve those passing through. The rest house became a thriving inn, a wheel and rainwright settled in the thorp, and more farmers and herdsmen followed, for grain was needed for the passing animals and meat was in demand for the innfolk. Prosperity was great. A collection of hovels and their inhabitants formed the nucleus for the troubles which were to increase. A wicked cleric established a small chapel at this point. The folks of Hommlet tended to ignore Knoll, even though it was but 6 miles distant. The out-of-the-way position was ideal for the fell purposes planned for this settlement, as it was positioned at a small river flowing into the Velverdry. The thickets and marsh around Knoll became the lair and hiding places for bandits, brigands, and all sorts of evil men and monsters alike. The chapel grew into a stone temple as its faithful brought their ill-gotten tithes. Good folks were robbed, pillaged, enslaved, or worse. In but 3 years of grim and foreboding fortress surrounded the evil place, and swarms of creatures worshipped and worked their wickedness there. The servants of the temple of elemental evil made Hommlet and their lands for leagues around a mockery of freedom and beautiful. Commerce ceased, crops withered, pestilence were abroad, but the leader of this cancer were in full hubris, and in their overweening pride sought to overthrow the good remains to the north, who were coming in to the rescue of the lands being crushed under the tyranny wrought by the evil temple. A great battle fought to the east, and when the villagers saw streams of robed men and humanoids fleeing south and west through the community, there was great rejoice, for they knew that the murderous oppressors had been defeated and driven from the field in panic and rout. So great was the slaughter, so complete the victory of good, that the walled stronghold of the Temple of Elemental Evil fell within a fortnight, despite the aid of a terrible demon. The place was ruined and sealed against further abominations by powerful blessing and magic. Life quickly returned to a semi-balance of what had been before the rise of the temple, and the decades since. The village and surrounding countrysides have in fact become more rich and prosperous than ever before. A monstrous troll, which plagued the place for a time, was hunted down by a body of passing adventurers. Within its ashes, these fellows returned a goodly fortune as well, leaving a portion with the villagers to repay for their losses, before going elsewhere to seek their fortunes. Other adventurers, knowing that the evil that had once resided in the area, came to seek out similar caches. And not only did they find some wealth, just as some never returned at all. After some 5 years, adventurers stopped coming to the area, and it seemed that no monsters were left to slay. No evil existed here to be stamped out. For 4 years thereafter, this seemed true. But then the bandits began to ride the roads again, not frequently, but to some effect. This seemed all too familiar somehow to the good folks of Hommlet, so they sent word to the Viscount that the wicked forces might still be lurking there in the countryside. And the news has attracted outside of the village once again. Who and what these men are, no one can be quite sure, although all claim to be bent on slaying monsters and bringing peace and security to Hommlet, for deeds speak more loudly than words.